That's right, guys. We're reviewing Star Trek Beyond.
That's right.
Just fucking with you.
Boldly go where I am your father.
I know that was a Lost in Space theme song.
Yeah, totally. Battlestar. This is Stargate.
I'm Gregory.
John Nold.
So J.J. Abrams had not returned to direct the sequel for Star Trek 3.
Abraham.
Instead, they got the director who helmed Fast and the Furious 4 through 6, Justin Lin. Who I sometimes get confused for James Wan, because they're both Asian. It happens. This film is getting wonderful feedback. I've been trying to go watch it a second time because I feel like something is wrong with it.
Yeah, let's go watch it again. I want to watch it again.
Because something is like, what? I didn't enjoy this film that much. It's been a few years since Into Darkness. I did that thing that normally works against me, where I binge watch, like I watch Star Trek Into Darkness, and then I go to the theaters.
It's like Rocky IV.
And it's not good doing that, I notice, especially when it's been a few years. A movie franchise that's big, but it's not like, you know, comic book status huge these days, you know?
Yeah.
The Star Trek movie franchise specifically.
It's
like,
a big property.
While it's got its dedicated fans and millions of followers, I really doubt that these films are going to cross like $1 billion. I don't think they're going to make the same amount of money that like a Marvel film would make or a Star Wars film would make for the most part.
Their hype machine isn't as big.
So I feel like that with their Star Trek films, specifically this one, I felt like they treated it as if the audience hasn't seen Star Trek in a while, so we need to make sure we tell it in a way that's different. I got that vibe, especially after
you could
watching...
also argue we've done this twice over, let's do it in a way that's different, you know?
Oh, there we go. The word different. All right. I really like the Star Trek one that both Star Trek films that J.J. Abrams did. I really love the first one, and I really like the second one. Not as much as the first one, but I really do like it. This one, though, it's like the things that I thought made it cool and what a lot of people really loved about it were the things that actually kind of bothered me about the film. For one, I didn't watch this in 3D. This is like a technical thing, not a storytelling thing. But it does bother me a lot that when I go to watch a film and it's not in 3D, that the special effects look like utter shit because it's so obviously like tending to 3D. I went with a group of people and we saw it on a 2D format, and there were so many times where we would just look at each other like, what is up with these special effects? And then I figured out that everyone else that I know that watched it saw it in 3D, weren't bothered at all by the effects. But I thought a lot of them were really bad. Except the Star Trek Enterprise crashing constantly. That Enterprise ship does not know how to stay maintained. Chris Pine on like the motorcycle and shit. I don't know.
I didn't think that was that bad.
Okay, this movie to me felt like it totally lacked in character.
What?
Dude.
Well, how do you mean that though?
This film I know is a love letter to the Star Trek original show. That's the biggest thing about it. It's like the 50th, what is it, the 50th celebration, 75th? Some celebration of Star Trek, right? So I know it's doing a huge homage to the original show. The show was a low-budget show, and it did rely a lot more on situations, not so much on like crazy Hollywood action like the reboots are able to incorporate now.
Well, and they were doing sci-fi because it was a chance to discuss things that you couldn't just discuss with human characters.
True.
You know?
If you watch the one that J.J. Abrams did, and I think if you set up this reboot series like that, where Kirk, like the first 5 minutes of that Star Trek movie with Chris Hemsworth's role, people fucking bawl their eyes out. And then the whole journey of Chris Pine having to accept this destiny in him and then having to embrace his leadership. Like, he has to go from a loner to becoming a leader, and Spock is this person who struggles with embracing his emotions and knowing when to act on emotions. There's a lot of emotional layers in there. Into Darkness has a lot of that with Benedict Cumberbatch. This one, though, was just another episode of Star Trek to me. It was just another plot.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is the first of them where I really felt like Chris Pine was a leader. The first of his Kirks, I felt like, yeah, this guy is just a leader. Like, I'm not watching... Because the thing is, like, I like the first Star Trek too. I should rewatch it because it's least fresh in my memory.
How many times have you seen the first Star Trek?
2 or 3. And I remember Into Darkness more, but the thing is, like, the first Star Trek, it's like you said, it's like he's finding his destiny and learning how to lead, and he's still very much like a brash, like I do my own thing guy. And it's like I've seen that story more times. In this one, he did feel like the leader of a crew, not a guy who had a bunch of people following him. They really handled the crew well in this movie. Like, I really got this sense best out of all of them, that this is a crew who is all, like, every member's important, everybody pulls their weight, and everyone is integral to the adventure.
As an episode of Star Trek, totally. As a movie, though, that has set itself up with a very specific tone, I feel like if you're going to reboot Star Trek, I don't think you should just go back and divert to making it just another episode of the series. In the long run of things, I don't feel like any of this really has a major effect on any of the characters in terms of their growth.
But here's the thing, like, and this is more of a philosophical film debate, because now franchises have changed. It used to be like, oh, we got a sequel, and now it's a whole other story. Franchises are expected to just go on now, so they are like giant TV shows, and at a certain point, you can't always convince us that this might be the end for our heroes every single time. I get what you're saying, because it doesn't necessarily feel...
that.
I guess.
The first and second one definitely don't do that. I mean, despite the whole thing with, like, Kirk dying for, like, 10 minutes in the second one.
They made him go into the reactor core, and they're like, you know, he might die, and Spock finally screams
It's
at somebody.
It's not about that, though. It's about the emotional effect that these journeys have on these characters. Seriously, man, I really feel like if you go back and watch the first...
them up.
I feel like if you watch the first Star Trek, I binge-watched this with a couple of other people, too.
Kirk is lost, like...
And what?
And that is what the whole opening monologue is
it's
about.
Weird. I don't think it's.
And
I don't
he's
think it's
supposed
cool
to see
say
himself
that
in Idris Elba.
To say that he's like the leader when most of the movie they're all split up. He's not leading them for most of the film.
No. But he feels like a leader and he behaves like a leader. And in the scenes where they are all together, I bought him most as a legit Starfleet leader, not as, you know, like rebellious Captain Kirk. He seemed like leader Captain Kirk.
Okay, but this journey to me is just another episode in their adventure. This is like
fair.
This could have been a like 20-minute retelling if they wanted to of them telling the story at a campfire.
But it's another adventure.
It's another adventure, but it's not
about
there's no emotional investment in this story for me at all. And I really feel like that's the biggest disappointment for me because it is just about the plot at hand. It's only about that. Enterprise gets destroyed again. They crash land. They're all separate for most of the movie. And while you get some great scenes, it's a rather small film. It's really small.
That made it feel like more like a real adventure in a way, because it's... You see, every movie like this now is all about how big we can be, and this one is like, it is kind of small, and that's a cool change of pace to me. I'm like, we're in one place a lot of the time.
When I say small, I also mean that it lacks tension, it lacks suspense, it lacks... like worry. A lot of I felt like it dragged a lot of time. The stakes I did not feel.
It dragged some. I mean,
I did not like the stuff with Bones and Spock were great. I love that shit.
Bones and Spock are great.
Yeah, but and that was great.
I like Scotty and Jayla too. I thought she was terrific. I thought she did a great job.
She does do a great job.
And she's got a lot of makeup to act through, and she could have gone through and not been anything special, but she stood out to me every time she's on screen.
But by the time they also get to Idris Elba's like explanation as to who he is, like we're like almost done with the film now. I don't really give a shit. I didn't really care about Idris Elba's performance or his role. The final conclusion with his character and showdown between him and Kirk was just like, it just felt very empty in emotions to me, especially after the heavy-set onslaught of emotions that the first and second one give us. Okay, and even with this one with Spock, they set up early on that original Spock is dead. And I thought that was like a cool setup to play on Spock's emotions. Like, holy shit, I could actually die, you know? And then it seems to have no real effect on him throughout the rest of the film.
He's contemplating leaving so that he can go basically help repopulate Vulcan.
That's a plot point. It doesn't mean it's felt, and it doesn't mean that it's like really there. It's just a plot point where they throw in information. Shut up, John! I'm not letting you talk. I'm gonna keep talking over you.
I will give you that because the movie does move so immediately and because there are so many characters who are all split off, I wasn't the most emotionally invested in this one out of the other ones. The other ones probably are more thrilling. The scene where they destroy the Enterprise is super cool, and Justin Lin does a really good job directing it, I think, and I was really bored during it. And I was, you know, starting to get heavy eyelids during that scene.
That's so weird because I really liked that scene.
I really liked it too. I don't know why, but the action bits were the least sort of thrilling to me. I liked the character stuff. I enjoyed it. I get what you're saying, that because we're jumping around a lot and because people are paired off, the dynamics are different. And I get that it's not big character development constantly, but I thought the different things they decided to play on and the themes they decided to bring into that were interesting. Every Star Trek fan review or professional review professing to be a Star Trek fan has sort of told me that this movie kind of splits the difference and brings in the Trek ideas, but doesn't skimp on the Hollywood, shininess. And I can see that. For as long as blockbusters get now, I almost feel like this one could have been longer, because then we would have gotten a little more time to really dig in to all the things these characters are going through. But I think the choices they made are all good. I think that what they did with them is still good. I agree, it could have been more, I could have been more psyched about it. I left feeling goodwill, but not like, I gotta watch it again.
I think it's a good plot, it's a good adventure, but I felt like there was a lot of substance that was just really missing for me. And honestly, I don't really think it was missing from the script. I really feel like it was probably in the hands of Justin Lin as taking over the direction for this. He's not known for being that great at handling the ingredients that I actually wanted in this film either.
I'm going to steal a point from Birth Movies Death, though, because I read their review and this stood out to me as Justin Lin, Fast and the Furious family, he knows how to handle an ensemble and to at least, let those characters be together.
Well, what he did with the Fast and the Furious...
And I thought his ensemble work was good.
No, what he did with the Fast and the Furious franchise is what he did here, which is he made it a really fun movie with this family. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, but that's all that it is. The fact that it looked and felt like the show a lot of the time was cool in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it was kind of like, I should just watch an episode of the show. If you're gonna reboot, there's no point in you rebooting this.
But it's
and
not
doing
exactly
your own thing.
the show. I mean, it's still got ingredients that the new movies brought in, and it's still on their timeline. I know this is different from any idea, and I've seen at least one of the old Star Trek movies. I'm like, this is different, but it does feel like they made an effort to bring in more of what makes Star Trek what it is, and I appreciated that stuff about the movie, because seeing the first two, I was like, I always get the complaint that it's a lot more like Star Wars than it is like Star Trek, and I thought that the stuff they brought in this time showed a concerted effort to make their tone a little more distinct, make their style a little more distinct.
It's more fun in the sense of just a fun summer movie than the other two, because the other two are rather dark and kind of heavy.
Oh, and the crazy, ridiculous danger and some of the set pieces are still really big, and you're like, those are a lot bigger than we would have done before, probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff here that's rewarding. I hear the fourth one, they're going to bring back Chris Hemsworth, which is going to be interesting, because Kirk's dad's going to be really buff. Unless he drops a bunch of weight. I imagine that's going to have an emotional effect on Kirk, and it's probably going to change the emotional dynamics a lot of the story. Will this third chapter feel as necessary, other than seeing the inclusion of this new character?
Jayla.
This felt like a Star Trek fan fiction film to me.
Yeah, no, this definitely felt like we're really trying to, think of the Star Trek fans. Not being a big, Star Trek expert myself, it's like I could still get that sense. You really want to show that this franchise does love Star Trek. This is the better side of fan interaction to me, where I feel like they really listened and they went, we've got a guy who clearly seems to know Trek on staff. Let's just let him write one.
Yeah, that's true. I think this film is meant more for the Trekkie hardcore fans. I haven't seen a lot of the shows, but I've seen pretty much most of the movies, even the ones prior to the Abrams version. I'm going off of in terms of Star Trek Into Darkness, and now Star Trek Beyond, not the whole legacy of Star Trek. Last thing I'm going to mention, the big controversial thing surrounding this was the fact that Sulu will be confirmed in this movie that he's gay. I really do like a lot how they handled that. It's lasts a few seconds, and it's not like, you're gay, Sulu? Some kid's gay joke. It's you see Sulu meet up with his husband and child, and that's it. It's brief, and it just shows you, oh, he's gay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's not like we need to make a big deal about it, Yeah. It's just it's cool that...
It's mixed in with, it's just Kirk looking on his crew.
I like that this movie did that in a way where being gay wasn't a thing that they were gonna focus on. It's just a big deal. It's we're in a day and age now where we can treat it like it's not a big deal.
I heard Simon Pegg's reasoning for that choice, and I like what they're going for. It don't make a big deal out of it, but it is a highlighted moment. It is the focus of a moment. But I thought it's a good, it's a benevolent moment.
It's 5 seconds, and you don't see anyone else's reaction to it, they're finding out Sulu's gay or something.
Yeah, it's they didn't need to do that, but it does, and it does serve that scene, and they handled it in a nice way. They handled it the way you should, and that makes it a broader world, a more encompassing world, a more progressive world. This sort of Gene Roddenberry design.
I give this movie 2 out of 5 warp speeds.
3.5. Say 3.5. I don't know.
It's not much higher than mine.
It's pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.
Good to pretty good. It's like I said, I'm not championing the bit.
Don't
to go
get me
back
wrong,
and see
guys.
it,
I know I have to watch it a second time. I feel like I missed the point of this film.
I'd like to go with you. No. We could do a 5.
It seems like everyone likes it but me. Anyway, if you guys are gaga about this channel, subscribe. Gaga about John, Facebook.Jerry. Bloomhouse, and follow Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, social network sites, and we have profiles on there. Goodbye.
Bye.